Cool. So I think two main things that we want to talk about is updates from the development side. Obviously, there's been a ton of work being done, a lot of cool documentation, and then also we have Felix here from Greenfield One, who wants to ask some questions about DAO governance, specifically how venture capitalists should interact with DAOs. And it's something I love to talk about too. So, being um, that a lot of people own different amounts of tokens in the DAO and how that should be expressed. And then how, frankly, as us as a DAO want the investors to interact in a way that is positive for everyone. So if anyone else has anything to add to the agenda, we can go ahead and add it now, and then we can hit all those as we talk.
Let's go. Sounds good.
Cool. Well,
Awesome. Hi, guys.
who from Decent would like to speak?
Yeah, I don't mind kicking things off here. Welcome all. Thanks for joining. I'm Trainface. I go by Adam in real life. The development update is going to be kind of short and sweet. We kicked off our engagement about the beginning of March, and these first 3 months have been slated for basically research and planning. And so that's been the vast majority of what I've been working on so far. It started off as considering what needs to change from the V1 system to support the functionality that we're trying to create for V2. And that was really just a lot of thinking, right? Everything just starts off in your brain trying to think about how this is going to work. And I've got a very, I guess, technically oriented brain. So I was coming at it from a technical level. How is this stuff going to be implemented? Those thoughts turned into kind of just like a brain dump, for lack of a better word. Just spent many hours walking around and just thinking about how things will work, and then turned those into just written dumps of everything I've been thinking about. From there, some other members on our team turned those brain dumps into some more structured documentation. Thank you. Shout out to Kit for that. And from there, we were turning that more structured documentation into more public, open forum discussions that we were using GitHub's forum or discussions feature for. So shout out to GitHub. Big fan of GitHub's just collaboration tooling. Using GitHub discussions, it's like a forum, kind of like Discourse. It's a forum where you can post threads and topics, and people can comment on them. So from those structured brain dump documents, we created a bunch of different threads that captured different features that were going to be implemented, and kind of coming at them from like there were a couple different angles. Some of them were just like technical workflows. So, working through the details and getting all that documented kind of step by step, which subsystems would need to be involved with supporting new features in V2, and how would that work from like data moving around point of view. And then there were some other topics on GitHub discussions that were more, I guess, theoretical still. So thinking about, for example, how NFTs might work in the system, right? Like capturing archaeologist rights and responsibilities as NFTs, and kind of what that means, and what does it mean to transfer those. And that was really just kind of more theoretical, just thinking about how that might work. And then those turned into, after getting input, those turned into more structured workflows. From there, that kind of evolved into the next form, from just like lists of like whatever lists of how things will work. And then I wanted to turn that into more visual documentation. So then I started making diagrams, flowcharts, sequence diagrams, etc., which I hate doing. With a passion. I just like can't stand drawing boxes on like draw.io and Lucidchart and shit. I just hate that shit so much. I don't even know why. I just can't fucking stand
That's
it.
funny. That's my favorite thing.
Oh my god, I hate that.
That's how I think.
So, I mean, I think that the output is good and useful and very helpful. Just like the act of drawing and arrows between them and making sure the lines aren't intersecting. I just hate that. But thankfully, I found this blog post that GitHub released or GitHub published that said they were including support for Mermaid.js basically in all of their UI. And I was like, what's that? And Mermaid.js is this really awesome flowchart library where you could basically describe a chart using like a structured language, like in a markdown file, and then this Mermaid.js library will turn that into a rendered visual diagram for you. So that was just like a breath of fresh air for me. So now I could,
Really,
just describe what a flowchart should look like declaratively, and then it just gets rendered for me. So
that's really interesting. That could be something that we could possibly use in the future for hierarchical sarcophagi. Like if two business partners have payloads that they want to be delivered to each other, like what happens if they both are triggered, right? And then like showing that flowchart that displays that could display live in the UI as they're creating the setup for the switches.
Yeah.
So that's I didn't know that existed. That's really cool.
Yeah. So if you want to see an example of how we're using that in the sarcophagus context, check out all of the markdown files in the sarcophagus v2 specs repo on GitHub, and you'll see how those mermaid diagrams are, or where they're coming from. Because if you look at the text view, and it just looks like it looks like markdown, but then whenever you view that file in GitHub, it renders it into a nice diagram for you. That's neat. So anyway, I guess back to my story. I was turning, after we felt like we had flushed out those GitHub discussions into enough detail, came turning those things from bunch of threads on GitHub into visual diagrams that kind of describe how data flows and how things work with the more visual presentation. And after that, which is what we're working on now, is combining basically all of this iterations of figuring out how Sarcophagus V2 works and combining all of that stuff and turning it into a master like system requirements specifications document. So this is as far as I'm thinking right now, this will be like the final deliverable from this first section of work, which is planning phase, and it's going to result in this system requirements specifications document, which I've got outlined out right now, and now it's just the arduous process of going through and filling it all in with a bunch of information. But this should be, the goal is that this document is the single source of truth for anybody to come and understand on the deepest level possible what sarcophagus is, just like as an entire system, what it is, how it works, the reasons for implementation details. All of that should be captured in this document. So right now, it's like a single GitHub single markdown file, but I might turn it into like a Git book. It might be a little easier to understand and be presented a little nicer. But anyway, that'll be just a simple change if we want to. So
I love this style rather than just trying to write code and then fix it. Right? Yeah. Let's do it all and let's flesh out all the problems before they become problems. I think this is one of the goals that we had when we raised some money was we wanted to do a more formal and academic style rendition of the entire system. And I think that's where we're getting to now.
Exactly.
V1 was very much a proof of concept, and I want to be able to tell people to trust it at the end of the V2. So I think we're well on our way.
Yeah, thank you for those words of confidence. I agree. I think this is a much more structured and hopefully low risk approach to the development cycles here. Yeah, so moving forward, as I said, we're working on that system specifications document now. Come into May is when we'll start actually putting, developer fingers on keyboard resources onto this V2 upgrade, and we'll get started changing contracts and adding functionality and I think that the system specifications document is going to probably evolve throughout the entire development lifecycle. I definitely don't want to say it's going to be done, put a stamp on it in a week or two, but the idea is that enough of it's there for the dev team to really clearly understand what's being built and what to build, and then there will be shit that pops up along the way. And as that stuff happens, we can address it, update the system spec accordingly, and keep on chugging.
Awesome. I can do a little update from my side in terms of treasury management stuff. If you're done, train face, if that's
yeah, no,
I don't want to steal the mic from you.
Please steal it. Yeah, that's pretty much the high level update of what's been going on. I guess later after we do rounds of updates, I'm very happy to take any more pointed questions about anything we've been doing so far or plans moving forward. But yeah, that's the end of my spiel.
Awesome. Well, thank you. So from my side, treasury management stuff, we've got $5 million worth of USDC. We've got X million dollars worth of Sarcophagus tokens. This is a long-term project. This is something that we intend to do for the next truly infinity years, right? So we're trying to build something that lasts forever, not a yield or some sort of yield aggregator protocol that disappears once the incentive structure is gone or once the incentive is fully distributed, which is almost where we're at with the liquidity mining right now, so the liquidity farming. So here in I think it's about a month or half a month, the liquidity mining incentive structure will drop off, and we'll likely see some degradation in the amount of liquidity we have in the Sarco token. So we've got to solve that, right? But again, this isn't an investing token, right? This is a utility token that's meant to fund a dead man switch. So deep liquidity isn't necessarily required here, and it's not something that is the highest priority. To me, sustainable liquidity it's much of a higher priority than deep liquidity. So I've been doing a lot of research and a lot of talking to different protocols out there that will allow us to do deep liquidity or to do sustainable liquidity without weird incentive structures, as well as treasury management where we're earning some yield on that USDC that's sitting in the contract because why not? So what I've pretty much settled on, and what I'll end up proposing to the group or to the DAO is doing a sub DAO that is a Gnosis multi-sig. Probably do a 7 of 9. It might be less than that. I'd like to get it up to 7 of 9. That will require that many signatures to move major funds. We'll only be doing kind of big deals, $1 million plus movements with that. Very structured, very tested, very public. In terms of treasury yield, looking at using notional.finance, which is a fixed income lending protocol, which DAI has the highest yields, I believe. Last time I checked, that last few times I've checked. So we'll likely have to transfer the USDC into DAI, which is something that I think might be a good idea to begin with. Given that both USDC and USDT have blacklists, I think it might be a good idea for us to go fully into DAI, maybe into Curve Tripool, or something similar to spread the risk out. But Notional's looking great. It's fixed interest, fixed term loans. There's a possibility once we have some more money, to use Enzyme Finance plus Notional Finance to do automatic rollovers. We haven't met that threshold yet for them to release that product. But either way, I love fixed income. It's great. We can lend some of the cash that we have in a completely riskless way. So why should we not? And then from the other side of liquidity management, we can use Rift Finance, which they've agreed to put us in their first or their next cohort of DAOs to allow us to add some liquidity to Uniswap V2. And how this works is, I really like how simple it is as opposed to all the other liquidity protocols. Is it lets us contribute Sarco tokens only, and it lets other people, lets the LPs contribute Ethereum to put up on the other side. Now, where it gets tricky is we have to promise them a minimum APY, and the way it works is we put up Sarco tokens, which we didn't pay for as a DAO, we created, so these are free to us. And we put them at risk, and we say, if this protocol or if this pool does not generate at least 6% APY, then at the end of the epoch, whatever we choose for the epoch, a couple of months, then we will backstop that with Sarco tokens. So, but if there is a 6% APY, if the people who put up ETH only, that go long ETH, all they have to do is put in Ethereum, and they earn a minimum of 6%. Now, if that comes from transaction fees, we don't have to pay anything in Sarco. Now, if they don't hit that in transaction fees, then we have to make up the difference in Sarco. So for us, we get the liquidity that we want. We're getting it at 6% minus fees. So we could end up paying almost nothing for it, depending on the trading volume, or we could end up paying out 6% APY, which are both good deals. So I'm really excited for that. Rift is a very new project, but I just think they're doing things in the most correct and simplistic way from all of the other liquidity solutions I've seen. Like I said, we're not a protocol we're not a project that requires deep liquidity. We are not doing borrowing lending. We are doing a utility project. So we just want to have enough liquidity so that when people are buying Sarco tokens to use in future Deadman switches, that they aren't having too much slippage. That's really it. We want to see tokens going in and out, but we're not trying to allow someone to buy or sell $1 million worth of tokens. It's just not the goal here. From the treasury management side, would love to hear from Felix here about some questions about DAOs interacting with VCs. Obviously, we have a lot of venture capitalist funding here. The $5 million came from them, and they should have a say over how it works. But also, they should be, in my opinion, they should be part of the DAO. They should be part of the crowd, and they should have the same permissions as anyone else. Which is a big reason that we're doing this conversation in the open, is wanting to talk about where, I guess, rights and responsibilities are, and where, I guess, my personal opinion is that everyone should be sitting on the same playing field and should have their opinion heard, and the opinion with the most votes wins. But yeah, Felix, if you'd like to talk for a minute or you have some questions, I'd love to hear from you and kind of how you're approaching this with other projects too, because we're learning as well.
Yeah, sure. Hi, guys. I have maybe some quick questions on the technical front and treasury management. But maybe like the first one, it's maybe naive and impossible. But I think I mentioned it before to some of you. I feel like it would be amazing if there was a way to only enable unwrapping of a sarcophagus if the time has actually passed. I don't know if that's in any way feasible. So that there would not be any possibility for collusion of the recipient and the diggers, basically. But sorry, I'm blanking on the correct term, on the archaeologists, exactly, the archaeologists.
We would need to use another time based. We would need to use something like gelato or a verifiable delay function. Like I believe it is a hard technical limit. Train face you can add. But I do believe that is something that is extremely hard. It would really architecture of how the archaeologist network works. Right, it would change the architecture of the system and move it into more of a mining structure than it would a validator structure.
Yeah, I mean that's right. That's a big question. I guess the first response that I have is that the answer to that question is pretty much the whole technical point of the system, right? The whole goal of Sarcophagus as a system is to build a dead man switch system in which there is no way, or a way with like the least amount of probability in which a recipient can get access to their data ahead of time. Right. I think we're trying to minimize that. The whole point of this is to minimize the probability of that happening. So, I mean, Felix, yeah, like very much to your point, like, yeah, that is the goal. I would love it if there were an easy way to like require that probability being zero. But I guess I personally am not quite sure how that can happen. Now one of the major updates between V1 and V2 is results in the probability dropping a lot. Like it used to be that a recipient just had to bribe one archaeologist in order to get access to their eventual data ahead of time. One of the big changes here in V2 is that we're spreading that risk around a bit, where now a recipient would need to bribe multiple archaeologists in order to get access to their data sooner.
And it's not possible to use block time for that purpose. To say whenever you sign a message as an embalmer, you would kind of postpone it to a certain future time, obviously, and that it's kind of only possible to decrypt if that block time has passed.
That's an interactivity problem, because then the system is interactive and requires someone to go in and say, this block time has passed and now it's time to unwrap. And that's kind of what the archaeologist network does.
Yeah. There's I mean, I guess the short answer to that is that there's no such thing as a cryptographic algorithm, like one that can encrypt data and decrypt data, that takes input from the outside, such as like the real world time or the block time from the Bitcoin network. If such an algorithm existed, then that would be great. But cryptography is very much they're just pure functions. It's just pure functions, right? There's data in, there's data out, but there's no way to force real world things into that encryption decryption. Because if you do that, then you're just, I mean, there is ways to do that, but then you're just trusting some oracle to provide like a valid data into that network as well. Which, I mean, at the end of the day is exactly what Super Secret just said. Like that is what the archaeologist network is. It's like that is the oracle network that is deciding when it's time to unwrap things. Now, the smart contract system on chain very much does have the concept of time built into it. And so, there's, should go without saying, but there's no way for an archaeologist to, give a recipient their data, their encrypted data, and then get rewarded for it on chain as if they're, finishing up the sarcophagus. They would be, that wouldn't work. And, there's always the strong possibility that recipient would then go and tattletale on the archaeologist on chain, by which would slash the archaeologist's bond. So, if an archaeologist is releasing data early, whoever is receiving that data early can prove to the system on chain that they received that data early, and then the chain checks its blockchain. The contracts say, "Oh yeah, nobody should have this data right now except the archaeologist. You are submitting a proof that you have it, and so we will go ahead and assume the archaeologist did a bad thing and slash their bond because of it." So there are incentives for archaeologists not to cheat the system, but in terms of like bringing the probability of that to zero, that is, as far as I know, an unsolved problem.
Yeah. So I guess it's also probably very important that it stays unknown what is actually the content of the payload, because then it also becomes infeasible to kind of let's say there is I don't know if you would advise even to put private keys to a large portfolio in there, and then let's say if somebody finds out the value of that portfolio, obviously you know exactly how much you need to bribe, and that might become feasible.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, I'll let you handle that one. Super secret.
So I think the solution to that is since we know that it's a technical impossibility, we're creating a market to try to approach zero, right? So it's a logarithmic function, and we're never going to hit perfect security. It's not possible. It's like a 51% attack in Bitcoin, right? It's always possible. If any nation state wanted to spin up enough power to kill Bitcoin, they could just 51% it with a native mechanism. It doesn't have to be a weird hack, right? And all proof of stake systems have the same vulnerability because we're talking about consensus algorithms, right? That's how it all works. What I would like to see us do is get to a point where the number of archaeologists that you're choosing to curse, meaning the number of archaeologists that you are giving the responsibility of unwrapping your file, increases, and you can also increase the threshold. So there's a material security difference between a 3 of 5 and a 4 of 5 signature scheme, but there's an extreme difference between a 3 of 5 and a 17 of 19. So we can allow the user, as we mature, to play with those thresholds and allow them to match the security level or the approach, the exponential approach to perfect security to 1 with the number of archaeologists and the threshold of signatures required to unwrap that payload. But I think it's creating the market that's the important part. So let's allow the curve to be created, kind of like an AMM, where you could match the security level of your whatever's in the sarcophagus, which only you know, right, to the security level and how much you're willing to pay. So each archaeologist you curse is going to cost more money because you have to pay them for their time, their opportunity cost of the bomb, et cetera. So I really think that rather than trying to solve the problem, we're creating a market to try to approach a theoretical impossibility. There's no such thing as perfect security, we all know. So what can we do to get as close as possible and to allow people to work their way down that curve? That's the way I see it. I think that, again, there's no such thing as perfect security. And when it comes to doing crypto recovery stuff, the portfolio, in question, can always be part of a greater system, right? We can say you have two of 3 signature scheme, or you have a 2 of 3 multi-sig on that, and you have 2 of the other shares in safe deposit boxes, but you have 1 in sarcophagus. So you're very, very limiting in terms of the value at risk, but you're still using our system as part of a greater security regime. So I really expect it to be that way. Or you're using multiple sarcophagi within a sharded system. Right? So you're sharding things before you put it in rather than after, using multiple archaeologists. So there's just a lot of ways around the problem. But I get what you're saying. I wish we could just do block time. It's impossible to encrypt before this block time. But this is the core of consensus. It's a problem that every crypto network has.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's, as I said, probably a naive question. I mean, I guess generally, for participation, I guess we are wondering how we should evolve as a firm to kind of provide more value to the networks that we have been backing and that we are backing, and kind of how to organize ourselves also where I think it makes a lot of sense that first we were thinking, okay, so should we build like a dedicated governance team that kind of overlooks the whole portfolio and can look into issues, and then I guess we came to the conclusion that this doesn't make a lot of sense. It should be like it should be the investment team that basically overlooks maybe specific subsectors. Maybe some of us are focused, like we have a new gaming and NFT partner, then like some of us are more DeFi focused and DAO focused, and I think to split it up that way, so kind of focus on certain verticals. But like once you did an investment, you should kind of stick to that project. You build like the initial relationship to the community and the founders, and that way, I think you also have just more psychological skin in the game to just be excited about the project, and that's how we think we should manage that, and then maybe build some like functional areas of expertise and expand on that. And yeah, would love to hear where you think or what kind of areas of expertise you would wish there were, like also within VC firms. We recently our previous lawyer joined us as a full-time partner to kind of support on the legal front, and we got a new CTO, kind of building also a data science team to support internally, but maybe also portfolio projects. HR, I think, is often a challenge. I guess it works differently in DAOs, but still, I guess we need to source talent, and also, yeah, we're also hiring. So if there are like good people, or I guess especially on the like analyst associate front that want to kind of be active in governance as well, I think this is the way we should do it. Happy to hear from you guys. And then generally, I think we had this question, like how is it maybe detrimental in some senses to kind of be too active or be kind of too dominant in a system? And I guess generally from a legal standpoint, it's also maybe there's some risk mitigation we need to practice to not be a dominant actor in governance. And generally, I guess this is maybe also part of the system design. I think like you guys did it, that tokens only vest over time, and so there's a limited power for individual actors anyways in that way, or like I guess from large investors at least. But I guess
I'd love to. So in terms of the like you guys like spinning up a dedicated governance team, like I can imagine that being like one of the hardest things in the world to hire for. But the information that is dispersed all around Discord, Telegram, all these different message groups and everything is invaluable, right? But you have to have someone doing it full time. Like we're lucky enough to have Johnny, who knows all of this shit, always has, right? So he is 100% on top of it. So I think like every firm needs someone like Johnny who understands this the communication style innately. And can just like kind of keep you informed, right? To say, I've been watching the Sarcophagus Discord, I've been watching the Decent Discord, and say, here's the highlights of what is happening. This might be something you want to reach out and maybe set up a meeting with some people, if there's some concerns, or, hey, we think you're going in the wrong direction, or we really like the direction you're going in. I think someone to distill what is going on and update your management team about it is very important, just so you don't have to try to keep up with all the different Discords, because that's impossible. But there's a split role there too, where we would love to have all of our investors participate in votes. And that's one of the core reasons why we did the on-chain raise, is because it's a proof of expertise. If you were able to complete the investment, you definitely know how to sign a transaction. And we have to sign a lot of transactions, right? We have to do payroll. So I think we have to do payroll. We have to do, liquidity stuff. We have to fund ambassadors. We have all these different things that we want to get a bunch of different votes for. We don't need everything to pass, right? Like, I think that's something we need to work on. It's like maybe there should be some proposals that don't pass. Obviously not inorganically, but it doesn't look good when there's the same couple of people voting on things and they're all passing, right? That looks like a company. And we want to move away from that. We want to move to everyone participating. So I think from a DAO perspective, we need to do a better job of saying all the votes that we're doing this month that we would like everyone to participate in will be live on the 15th or on the 1st. And that is a recurring thing where you guys know you can get your wallets out, you can do your multi-sigs, whatever system you use to sign things with the address that you use to contribute to Sarcophagus. We need you guys to sign transactions, to participate in the actual kind of the actual day-to-day movement of funds and movement of authority. To me, that's the most important thing, is wanting to see everyone interacting in the open, of me like pinging you openly and say, hey, there's a new vote up, can you vote on it? And seeing disparate groups all contribute and vote. I'd say that's my number one thing, other than like just being in the Discord. It's actually you do have the power to do a lot of stuff, so we want to see it exercised rather than being on the sidelines. And of course, there's no government.
Of course, it gets like quickly overwhelming to be like, you're in so many Discords and it's so much happening at the same time. Because we need to just beef up manpower, but then to some extent, I feel like it would be, or it's generally quite valuable to have like maybe some, I guess just for general community, also for everyone who's not extremely active, some like summaries, or I guess these community calls are also good, where you hear the updates. And something we were actually discussing today, there's a project called Ethermail, where you could basically send out emails to all, like to any Ethereum address, basically, maybe just to all token holders, and to kind of ask people to participate in a vote that's upcoming.
Yeah, I think that's a big deal, because I'm sure, I sure as hell hope everyone's using hardware wallets, and I don't keep my hardware wallet in my pocket, so if I'm coming out to sign things, I want to sign all of it all at once. Utopia, on top of the Gnosis, the payroll multisig, has done a good job of making things a little bit easier. But yeah, I think if we say there's only going to be 2 dates in the month, say we do the 1st and the 15th are going to be signing days, you guys know that you should have your wallet out on the 1st or 15th, or 1st and 15th, I guess, that there could be a signature requested from you, rather than ad hoc. Because I think ad hoc is hard, because everyone's traveling. Like, I think it is insane to say that you have 2 days notice to sign a transaction.
Definitely.
It's just too much, especially for the amount of money involved. Like, I mean, you guys gave us multiple millions of dollars, right? So like, it's not like you're using MetaMask on your phone. And it would be unreasonable for us to expect that. But how do we dissociate that? Or maybe we do some more stuff like the Sarco-Pay token, where you're able to send that token to an intern or to the person who is on the Discord all the time, where it is a lower security threshold. I think if we could dissociate that, or just make it easier for you guys to participate in the actual signing of transactions. And input, obviously, input is very valuable from everyone. But actually, like, you guys have a huge portfolio, you have to manage a lot of different positions, and it's really hard to keep track of day-to-day stuff, because that's our job, right?
Yes, I think maybe us, and maybe also a lot of other investors, they kind of need to use custodians to the largest extent possible, unfortunately. But now with Fireblocks that we are using, you can sign arbitrary transactions, so it's easier that way. But I guess just generally to prepare for, I guess if it's just like some, I guess, very pragmatic thing, you can easily just sign it. But I guess some decisions would need to be kind of prepared and just discussed to then say, okay, yeah, let's do it. Let's have like a formal proposal also internally that we say, yeah, we are all fine with that, and we can sign it. So I guess there always should be like some time in advance to.
What threshold would you say? Would you say to like the 5th? If we propose on the 1st, say if we put the proposal out on the 1st that we want you to sign yes or no, and then the actual signing date is the 15th, is that enough time?
Yeah, definitely. I think so.
Okay. I hate to like inject like big time gaps, but like we do want people to understand it, and we want people to actually read it. I don't want to see a bunch of abstentions, or just voting yes because everyone else voted yes. And this can actually be solved a little bit as we mature in the governance program. The yields from the treasury will be distributed to people who vote. So if there's 5 votes, and someone doesn't participate, or they only participate in one of them, they're only getting 20% of the yield that they would otherwise receive. So there is some incentive, right? Maybe you can give that to who you can give that yield, it'll probably only be, a couple $1,000s, but like you can give that to whoever is in charge of it. Right. So it's like, I think there is some potential for delegation as we include an incentive for those that are participating.
What do you generally think about like delegation? Do you think like VCs should, or like it is the job of VC to kind of vote themselves, or?
Yeah, I don't like delegation.
Like,
yeah, I like using the sub-DAO structure and saying that this specific instance, certain people have more power than maybe their token holdings. But in terms of like delegation, I feel like it just turns into a really bad Pareto problem, and then there's just the same people in charge of everything. Unless you have some sort of like hard economics around the delegations. I don't think we have that yet. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a big delegated voting fan. Maybe some other people here are, but I feel like the incentive structure is a little bit off. Any delegated voting or delegated consensus fans out here? I know I'm talking shit about it. Like I'm open to the idea. It's just like I think if we use a system where you're rewarded for voting positively, you're never punished. But if you don't vote, you don't earn your income. You don't earn what would be yours proportionately. And then we take all of the yield that would have been given to the people that didn't vote, and we distribute that equally among the people who did vote perfectly, which means that if our larger holders don't vote in a given vote, their proportionally large yield from the treasury will be distributed equally among people who did vote perfectly. And you don't require a lot of tokens to vote perfectly. It actually requires just any amount of token, 1.0017 zeros, 1 tokens, and you can vote. As long as you're doing that perfectly and you're voting all the time, you would get your equal proportion of the leftovers. I still need to I've got my flow chart of that. I know, Trainfish, you hate flow charts, but I have my flow chart to make more sense than me describing it. But one of the big incentives would be to attract people to vote that may not have an incentive from purely the yield. Because if you have 5,000 tokens, like it's a good position in Sarco, but your proportional yield will be very low. But if our VCs or like our founders aren't voting, all of their yield would go amongst the people who did vote perfectly. So, and then the cost of gas keeps that Sybil resistant. But again, that's a decent, that's something we have to implement on the governance side. But that is, I think, the future of it. But we got to get there, right? We got to get to consistent votes. And then also the sizing of the votes, right? Like we don't want to be voting on $5,000 worth of shit, but it might need to happen sometimes, more of a signaling thing. Like, do we approve these people to be the liquidity management council? That's going to be a type of vote, right? And we need everyone's input on that, because that's a big decision. And there should be some dissent too. Again, I want dissent that's warranted.
Kind
right?
of like
Not
delegation, I would say.
What's up?
I guess this is like a certain way of delegation, I guess, or like just using sub-DAOs or using a council for certain tasks. I think this makes total sense, but I think it should depend on the topics, or like you should. This is, I guess, like appointing some executives for a given job or a given area. This, I think, does make a lot of sense.
I agree. Yeah, I agree completely. Well, I think if there's anything else that you want to discuss, Felix, or if anyone else on here has questions, concerns, comments, wants to talk about something else, I think it's a good time to open it up.
Yeah, I was wondering, did you consider protocol-owned liquidity, or like using part of the treasury to, I don't know, maybe it's a waste of the USDC, or it's that could be used otherwise. But
so in this case, if we use Rift, we are putting up Sarco we're putting Sarco at risk, and we're giving all of the fee income to the outside Ethereum contributors. If they receive 6% APY at the end of the epic, then we paid nothing. All we did was have to put up Sarco and suffer impermanent loss, which again is fine. Now, the other option is for us to buy Ethereum as a DAO using the USDC and then own both sides of the market. So where we would receive all of the fees, but we would also be exposed to Ethereum price movements and sarcophagus and permanent loss, which kind of goes down to one of the core principles here, and something that I think I personally struggle with in running or like working with the treasury management stuff, is this isn't a hedge fund, right? This is a DAO that exists to create a sustainable dead man switch protocol, not to maximize treasury returns, right? So taking exposure to ETH at that level, I don't think is a good idea. So like the way I think of it is, what can we use to leverage the large amount of sarcophagus token holdings that the DAO has to get the deepest liquidity possible in a sustainable way? And I think that we could own some liquidity. Like we can own some of it. Maybe we buy a baseline. We buy $500,000 worth of Ethereum and then put it against the sarcophagus. But yeah, I think if we can use other people's Ethereum, it gives us some leverage and lets us have more depth and liquidity for like more bang for our buck there. But yeah, it's very. I would also love to know, like as an investor, right? Like you guys invested in sarcophagus, not in Ethereum, right? If you wanted to put cash into Ethereum, you could have done it in a very direct way. So like as we get bigger, this isn't as big of a problem. But like I don't know if we as a DAO should be owning a large position in Ethereum and being at the whims of that.
I guess, yeah, I guess you should use the least risky strategy available. So you basically maximize your runway, or enable you to invest basically in whatever it takes to build the best admin switch and go to market strategy for that. So
yeah, and I think it changes all the time too. Like as like we were looking at forget what there was like one liquidity protocol and liquidity strategy that works really well for tokens that have like a blow up price, where like if the token hits 3 cents, the whole thing stops working. But we don't have that. Like our token can go down to 1 cent and the whole thing still keeps working, right? So if you're doing some sort of like more financialized company, that's very necessary to have like a token price floor. But for us, it's not. It sucks to see token price go down, obviously, but it's a reflection of reality. Where in a normal startup, you don't have an instantaneous pricing of your equity. So I think it's just yeah, I'm excited to see more stuff come up, but I want to take the risk on Sarco tokens, not on Ether, just because we're so exposed to Ethereum anyway, being as part of this, right? Like, I mean, we want to deliver the correct risk, right? Not higher, not lower. We want the exact risk of the dead man switch, not of Ethereum in general.
Yeah, we are looking into a project that I guess is somewhat like Dodo, kind of true, but I think a much better version of it, where you can reduce the impermanent loss risk up to a minimum. But the downside is you need to have the token listed, I guess, on a centralized exchange somewhere, or you need to have, maybe it also works like you need to have some exchange that has where price discovery happens, and then you can just have like the AMM tracking that market price and avoid impermanent loss going forward. But maybe that's something for a future date. But I guess this is
that's interesting. I mean, again, like we don't need deep liquidity. That's just like we're not a financialized protocol. But yeah, I also was thinking the other point that you made of like you guys looking for like analysts and looking for other projects, like at Decent and at Sarcophagus, we have a lot of people in the Discord that do nothing but invest in crypto, right? So if you can go in there and ask them what their new ideas are, what cool shit they've seen. I don't know if we can maybe make a channel on Decent or on Sarcophagus about other projects that are, I don't know how to do that without making that shilly. I'm sure Johnny's just like, fuck. But like, how do you talk about other projects that are cool without just purely shilling them? But I mean, if there's one place to find it, it's in the dev section of a Discord, right? So I don't know where your guys' threshold is there, but yeah, good luck hiring analysts that understand Discord language. I think it's just a very, very, very hard problem.
Yeah, I guess generally exactly out of these Discords probably, or I tell people, hey, you have been excited about these projects. Why don't you want to do it full time maybe?
Yeah, I mean, if anyone here is listening and wants to do analyst work, I feel like I can't recommend Greenfield One enough. They've been great to us, and clearly crypto native investors, which obviously is a core tenet of both Sarcophagus and Decent. Is everyone involved is core crypto. There's no Web2 people here. But
well, I guess it's also, I guess to a great extent, I guess these skill sets overlap where you're looking for new projects, investments, but then also participating in communities, or contributing to projects. I think it's maybe also a separate kind of skill set that's not necessarily the same thing. And I think, yeah, we need all these kinds of people, I think.
Yep. Well, thank you, everyone. We got quite a few people on here. It seems like a lot of the core folks, and just really appreciate the time. If nothing else here, I'll jump off and just say end with thank you, everyone, and looking forward to the next one of these calls.